Hey, welcome to Microsoft Build. So glad you've had a chance to join us. We're here to talk about, what are we here to talk about? Let's take a look. We're here to talk about PowerShell 7. Now, you might be saying to yourself, wait a minute, isn't this a tool for IT admins and operations? Yes and no. This is a tool for anyone that needs to do operations. So, if you're packaging up your software or putting together a build or release pipeline, PowerShell is the glue that puts all of this together for you. So, we wanted to have a chance to talk to you about it and how this might make your life a little bit easier. And I keep saying we. Let's take a look at the introduction slide. When I say we, I'm talking about, the ultimate rock star PM, Sydney Smith. And if you haven't had a chance to work with Sydney yet, call into our team. You definitely want to. And then there's me, Jason. I'm also a PM too. Well, Sydney, welcome to Microsoft Build. And what are we going to be looking at in this session?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jason. So excited to be here. So we're going to start out with a quick orientation to PowerShell 7, a little bit about how we got here and what it's all about. And then we'll dig into some features that get devs really excited about putting PowerShell 7 on their machines. We'll transition into some more features that are backwards compatible all the way to Windows PowerShell 5.1. And then we'll wrap things up with some steps to get the latest stuff and stay in touch with the team. So let's jump right into it. Start with how we got to PowerShell 7. Well, it all began with Windows PowerShell and the Monad Manifesto, which was written by Jeffrey Snover back in 2002. From there, PowerShell was birthed, and we had our first release in 2006 with PowerShell 1. Windows PowerShell was built on .NET Framework. During this time period, we were releasing as a Windows component about every 3 years. And the key feature was that Windows PowerShell was all about Windows. It was a Windows management tool and a really good one.
Well, and it was not only a really good one, it was probably the best management and automation tool. But here's the challenge. I worked in operations. We were responsible for operations, full stop. In other words, it didn't matter what the platform was. It could be Windows, it could be Linux, it could be an AS400, whatever the deal is, you have to deal with operational tasks and try to manage and automate those. So the team changed their investment view into looking at not just Windows, but how to expand PowerShell's usefulness to everyone that worked in operations. And so PowerShell 6 really dialed in on that cross-platform capability, bringing PowerShell to Linux and Mac and making it so that it's also a management and automation tool on those platforms. But there was a challenge here. With that change and using .NET Core, PowerShell lost some of the functionality that it had on Windows, some of the commandlets and the modules that needed the full .NET framework. Well, that suddenly was a problem, and that caused some challenges. So it wasn't quite as working as well on Windows as it should be, right, Sydney?
Yeah, and that brings us right into PowerShell 7, which is where we kind of combined these two paths. We had our Windows PowerShell path, our PowerShell core path. And what PowerShell 7 did was bring these two together. Not only was it still cross-platform, still open source, but now it was also, once again, a full Windows management tool and really a viable replacement for Windows PowerShell. It was built on .NET Core 3.0 and PowerShell 7.0 GA'd in March of 2020.
And without a doubt, we are continuing that work today. So we're currently working on PowerShell 7.3. Of course, it's built on .NET 7. And we're maintaining all of that existing work, all of the cross-platform, all of the emphasis on being the perfect management tool for Windows. And we're continuing that work. And there's so much for us to do. There's so much technology out there for us to address and to keep expanding PowerShell with, which in and of itself kind of creates part of the challenge with so much technology out there. In fact, Sydney, if we go to the next slide, I think, part of this challenge is that there's so much work out there that we could do. The question is, what should we do? Knowing our audiences, knowing our community, working with our community, what should we be spending our time on? And so we really kind of focus on both the original vision of PowerShell and how that vision has grown to help us decide what's the most important for our community moving forward in the future. And that vision starts with, so back in 2002, Cindy had mentioned this, back in 2002, and you can still read this, Jeffrey Snover wrote the Monad Manifesto. And Monad was the key word for what became PowerShell. And one of the things that he wrote in that manifesto, and I think it's really important, is he talks about what Monad should be able to do. So Monad leverages the .NET runtime to provide a powerful, consistent, intuitive, extensible, and useful set of tools. I love that part, but the part that really matters is that drive down the cost of administration and make the life of non-programmers a lot easier. And that's true. Through the development of Windows PowerShell 5.1, it's been focused on how do we abstract some of those complexities and make lives easier for IT admins. But beginning with PowerShell 6, not only did we go cross-platform, but we engaged with the audience further so that we could extend PowerShell even further. That meant that we had to update some of our thank you. We had to update some of our thinking of themes about this. And so, Cindy, you want to dive into that?
Yeah, that brings us right into our sort of evolving vision for PowerShell today. Today, we talk about our purpose statement for PowerShell as improving the lives of folks working on operations by simplifying automation. So let's dig a little bit more into what we mean by each of these sort of terms. When we talk about improving the lives of these folks, we have genuine empathy for our users. We know that the world is continuously changing and that we hope that PowerShell should relieve these frustrations caused by this ever-changing and complex management landscape. When we talk about working on operations, we know that PowerShell users solve diverse problems. That PowerShell is for everyone who does operations, and developers do operations, so that PowerShell is for developers. And when we talk about simplifying automation, we hope that PowerShell relieves fear over unfamiliar technology because the process of discovery and learning new types of automation is consistent with the past. PowerShell continues to evolve with its community. And this really ties into the sacred vow of PowerShell that goes all the way back to PowerShell 1, which was released 15 years ago, which is that if you invest in PowerShell, we will make sure that it is the best investment you make because we will continue to evolve your skill set as the landscape changes for management and operations.
Yeah, and you know, the world's a messy place, and it's a messy place for everyone. And so if you're doing operations, PowerShell can help you with that. And so why should devs think about utilizing PowerShell and having PowerShell on their systems? Well, it's pretty much a simple proposition. You need to do operational tasks too. And PowerShell helps you do those in a very quick, fashionable way, a way that you can grow upon, and that it's easy for you to learn what the next technology is and to implement whatever that operational task needs to be. Let me give you a couple of examples of some of the things that we've put together that you in particular as a developer might find more useful. One of the first things is, and this is one of my favorite things, is predictors. Now, one of the best predictors that we have out right now is the history-based predictor, part of the PS readline module in PowerShell. And what this predictor does, if you've seen Z-Shell and some of its suggestion completers, if you've seen Fish and how it does this, this is very similar to that. We take your history, we provide it to you in a little ghost image text as you are typing, and that suggestion, that prediction will change as you continue to type. Basically, what the history-based suggestions let you do is if you've done something successful in the past, it reminds you of it. So you don't have to remember it and go, oh, where did I stick that note? Or where did I keep that code snippet? So it makes it so that you can quickly move through stuff you've already accomplished before. Also with predictors, though, we have some additional predictors that are out, like the AZ predictor, which helps predict new and interesting ways to work with Azure. In other words, what if you haven't done something before and you're brand new to it and you need to create a resource group or you need to create an Azure VM? The Azure predictor will actually help you predict your way through that process to help guide you. So it also can help you learn new technologies. So besides predictors that you can use, a couple of other things that are on the list. One of my favorite things to always talk about is Crescendo. Now, think about this, how this might apply to you. First of all, let's talk about command line tools. We're building them. We're going to keep building command line tools. Command line tools are very important and very necessary. And let's face it, they're pretty quick and easy to turn out. When you need to release features that you want somebody to be able to type at a console to do, command line tool works great. The thing is that PowerShell users have really grown accustomed to commandlets. Commandlets make it very easy for PowerShell users to work with different technologies. And it also is in a format that they understand. They know how to get more information. They know how to get the examples. They know how parameters work. And it provides objects moving down the pipeline that they can easily manipulate as opposed to using regex on everything. So Crescendo takes these command line tools and wraps them into commandlets for you. And I know what you might be saying. You might be saying, well, gee whiz, I can already wrap an API and do that. Yeah, but this is probably a lot easier than that. And for people that aren't sure exactly how to do that, it's a great way to get your commands turned into commandlets, and then you can use them in your automation. So take those complex commands and make them something useful as commandlets. Very simple and easy to do. Also, besides Crescendo, a few other things that we've done over the last year or so that may be useful to you. And here's a great example. Ternary operators, ternary and pipeline chain and no condition operators. You might be saying, what's the big deal here? Well, think about this. PowerShell was designed to help non-programmers. So the initial scripting language was pretty simple stuff. And it was enough for me to be able to automate my tasks and my resources. But, as time has evolved, technologies have evolved. We want to welcome developers in being able to manage their own problems with PowerShell. So we need to make the environment more welcoming to developers. And, what developers are a first-class citizen for us. So we've added things so that you can go and work in PowerShell the way that you normally would, and PowerShell will respect and respond accordingly. So things like adding in ternary operators, while me as an IT operations person probably didn't need that much, but I can use it. You certainly can. And so making that environment comfortable for you is very important to us. And besides things like ternary, adding operators, and making the environment comfortable, we want the functionality to always rock. And what I mean by rock is, hey, as an IT admin, I can look at something very simple like deploying software. I want to deploy Office, and I can sit there and go, if I have to run around the office with a CD in my hand, it's going to take me weeks to get this deployed. PowerShell, though, will let me choose the computers I want and iterate through that computer list and deploy to those machines. Maybe I can get that deployment done in a day. Well, that's a huge relief. Things like the ForEach object commandlet really help with that, like iterating through the computer list. One of the things we did, we made it parallel. And that is so that instead of taking a day, maybe now that deployment only takes me an hour. So with the parallelism on ForEach, now you really can have some performance impact into your deployments and what you're working on. And I think, Sydney, was there one more slide for me to
Yep,
talk about?
one more.
One more. This is one of our favorite ones. PowerShell, during the development of PowerShell 6, PowerShell went to open source. And wow, was that the best decision ever. Because now what we get to do is we get to work directly with the community, not only talking directly with the community, not just having them file an issue here and an issue there and having some discussions, but they contribute code to us. There's so much that we could do. We need to stay focused on what we should do. And the community's been awesome at coming in and helping us with what we should do and helping us in the areas that we can't spend much time in. And you can see, and this is great. Sydney put a lot of these great stats up here. 98 repositories have been updated this year, 3,500 issues created in the past year. What I really like is 1,700 created PRs in the past year. This is awesome. These are people helping us code. And I thank Sydney for throwing this in, by the way. We closed a few of those PRs along the way. So our open source community is amazing and is critical to us. We want you to come in, join us, help us develop and grow PowerShell too. And I think that takes us to devs put PowerShell on their machines because because we're thinking of you. We're trying to make it comfortable for you, and we're adding in features we already have to make it more familiar to you. We want this tool to be just as familiar to you as it is to IT admins. This tool is what you're going to use for managing all of your operational tasks, whether it's Windows or Linux. And so while we have a list here of some features, we've got a lot more in the product itself. Sydney, what else we got going on here?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jason. That was such an awesome list of features. Super exciting to go through. And what's cool too is that so much innovation has happened in PowerShell over the last few years. But in fact, a lot more innovation happens outside of the PowerShell engine today. And one of the huge benefits of that is that it means that folks who are on lower versions of PowerShell, say Windows PowerShell 5.1 Plus, get to take advantage of many of these features anyways because of the backwards compatibility. So I want to share with you some features that get devs really excited, even if they're on PowerShell 5. So first up is the PowerShell package ecosystem. PowerShell gets its power from the solutions users create, and the PowerShell package ecosystem is a really great example of this. There are a couple of components to this that I wanted to sort of highlight here. So first is PowerShell Get. PowerShell Get is a module. It ships in-box in PowerShell. The first time it shipped in PowerShell was PowerShell 3.0. And it's a module that allows you to find, install, update, and publish PowerShell resources right from inside of PowerShell. So you might have used the command find module or find script before. Here I have an example, find module AZ with the wildcard, and you can see it starts to list out all of the AZ modules. In addition, we support the PowerShell Gallery, which is the public central repository for sharing and acquiring PowerShell resources. And there's so many resources available for a lot of the problems you're trying to solve with PowerShell today. As you can see, the screenshot recently taken shows over 100,000 unique packages are available on the PowerShell Gallery today, and that number is always growing. There are also other repositories that PowerShell Get can't interact with if your needs are more for private repositories. But either way, taking advantage of this ecosystem, of these solutions that so many developers have created to solve problems with PowerShell is a huge part of what makes PowerShell so useful. I also will mention that there is a major update to PowerShell Get in the works, known as PowerShell Get 3.0, and it's currently in preview states. So if you're eager to play around with that, try it out and see what new features. I guess refer back to the last slide on the benefits of open source and come be part of our development process as well. And definitely try that out. Many of the things we've talked about today and I will continue to talk about are also modules that are available on the PowerShell Gallery. So once again, really great resource to solve a lot of your PowerShell problems. And I want to highlight two modules that we've released recently that are available on the PowerShell Gallery. And this is SecretManagement and SecretStore. So SecretManagement is a module that allows you to manage secrets with a common set of commandlets across vaults. And this is an extensible model. So you can use your favorite vault, whether that's Azure Key Vaults, LastPass, KeePass, whatever it is you like to use. Maybe you use all of them. And so how it works is you can register these vaults with SecretManagement and then use a single set of commandlets, set secret info in your scripts. And so this allows you to abstract your secrets, your secret configuration from your scripts. And so it enables a whole bunch of scenarios. And so one example that I think is relevant to a lot of developers that I've talked to is that you can run your script in local test and prod with the change of only a single parameter, and that's your vault. If you use the default vault settings, maybe you don't even have to change your vaults at all. I also wanted to speak a little bit about SecretStore. So SecretStore is a module that we shipped at the same time as SecretManagement. It's a separate module, but it's a cross-platform Microsoft-owned local vault that works everywhere that PowerShell ships and has some nice configuration settings that make it work really well in automated settings. Both of these modules, once again, available in the PowerShell gallery and are compatible with PowerShell 5 Plus. You can see the code snippets here. I just show how you can install these modules, how to register a secret vault. I have SecretStore. I name it SecretStore. You can pass in the module name, which is Microsoft PowerShell SecretStore, and then I use the default vault flag so that I don't need to use the vault parameter as I continue on. I create my first secret. If I do a set secret with the name test secret, it's going to prompt me at the command line to securely provide my secret. I can use get secret when I want to access it, and then get secret info to see my secret metadata. In terms of development, I also wanted to talk about Visual Studio Code. The PowerShell team supports 2 extensions for Visual Studio Code, the PowerShell extension and the PowerShell Preview extension. And this is the supported editor for PowerShell 7 by the PowerShell team, but it is compatible all the way back to 5.1. And it provides a whole bunch of features like syntax highlighting, snippets, IntelliSense, references, run selection, debugging, and it has this wonderful integrated console experience. If you are a user who is familiar with the PowerShell ISC, we also have something exciting for you, which is ISC mode. It gives you a really familiar visual experience with a lot of the same shortcuts that you're maybe used to in the ISC. And so what you'll do is you'll install Visual Studio Code, you'll get the PowerShell extension, and then you can pop open the command palette. That's Control-Shift-P. If you start typing in ISC, you'll see Enable ISC mode, and click that, and you'll get this really nice experience to kind of make that transition to Visual Studio Code. I will also mention that we've made a huge amount of investment in the stability and reliability of the extension over the past couple of years. And so some of the latest preview releases and stable releases that have come out have really significant performance impacts if you are somebody who maybe tried it a few years back. And one more feature that is backwards compatible and that folks get really excited about is OpenSSH. So OpenSSH is the open source version of Secure Shell, and it's used by many administrators for cross-platform management of remote systems. It has been included in Windows, and it's really relevant to PowerShell because PowerShell can help a lot with the configuration and use of OpenSSH, especially for doing operations on remote systems. Key is for anyone who needs to do operations on remote systems, OpenSSH is going to be really useful for you, and PowerShell is a really great tool to kind of put that all together. Here in the snippets, I just have some really basic kind of getting started instructions for making sure you're all configured, but I definitely recommend checking out the docs on Microsoft Docs about OpenSSH to see sort of the full tutorial. Alrighty, well, in summary, Jason shared with us a bunch of reasons why devs get really excited about PowerShell 7 and like to put it on their machines. So we talked about predictors, both historical and AZ. We talked about authoring with Crescendo, Ternary, and the other new operators that shipped in PowerShell 7, ForEach object parallel, and we talked about how PowerShell 7 is, and the latest versions of all of these modules we talked about are all open source and allow you to participate in the development experience. Also talked about some of our new features that are also backwards compatible to 5.1 that still get developers really excited. We talked about SecretManagement and SecretStore, the package ecosystem, especially PowerShell Get and the PowerShell Gallery, the PowerShell extension for Visual Studio Code, OpenSSH, and then really wanted to mention too that the historical predictor that we talked about, as well as Crescendo modules. Whereas authoring is only available on PowerShell 7, actually using the modules is compatible back to PowerShell 5.1. And we wanted to mention, by the way, that everything we showed today is also going to work on Mac OS if that's your dev box of choice.
This is awesome. Everything works on Mac, it works on Linux, works on Windows. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're doing operations, why wouldn't you use PowerShell? Sydney, that was awesome. That's just awesome. And there's so much more to come. Well, here's what it really kind of about. Yes. So out of all of this, by targeting and focusing on the themes that are important to us, we've taken what we could do down to what we should do. And one of the interesting thing is if you look at this list, based upon our sacred vow that PowerShell needs to be extended for new and the latest technologies, it's all in there. Thanks to our lead engineer, Steve Lee, very forward looking. We've got that covered. And of course, the world is a messy place, and we want to try to make some of that mess a little bit easier, abstract that, and take out some of the complexity. And thanks to Michael Green, our lead PM, keeping us aligned with the customers and talking with the customers and working open source, we think we can maintain that alignment. So find out more about our PowerShell investments. You can go out to our blog and take a look at the investment breakdown that we're making for this year. And as we're moving forward, it contains lots of things for IT specific people, for developers. But at the end of the day, PowerShell is as it always has been. It's for everyone to manage operations. So how do you get PowerShell? I think that's what my next slide. Oh, that is.
Yep, you got it.
Oh, that's awesome. So you get it by, well, there's the AKAMS link. You can get PowerShell. Now, couple of things to keep in mind when you grab PowerShell. Don't forget about our swim lanes of innovation. A lot of the interesting innovation in PowerShell doesn't necessarily occur in the engine. It happens in the modules. So go out to PS Gallery and make sure you grab the latest and greatest modules that you might be interested in, such as PS Readline, which has the predictors in it, Crescendo, SecretManagement. All of those modules, a lot of our development is extensible and available there. We encourage you to join us and create modules and scripts that you too can put out onto the PowerShell gallery as well.
Thank you so much. So a few ways to stay in touch, in case you haven't already heard us mention it a few times. GitHub, an open source. Check out the PowerShell project. You can interface with Jason and I directly there, as well as the entire PowerShell engineering team to kind of get any of your feature requests, bug reports, questions. That's an awesome place to start. Here we also have an ak.ms join link for our PowerShell community call. We do a PowerShell community call every month. It's the third Thursday of the month at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And we get folks from all over the world to join. We give updates from the engineering team on sort of the latest things. We have community members pop on screen and do demos, and we answer any sort of questions. So another really great opportunity to both connect with other PowerShell users and also get your questions answered directly from the PowerShell team. I will make one other plug about the community call, which is a few slides back. Jason touched on the PowerShell team's investments for 2020 and talked about there's an amazing blog post that details that. In the March community call, March of 2020 community call, we also had the developers who own each of those sort of feature areas come on the call and talk a little bit about what they're working on. So if you saw that slide and kind of wished that Jason and I had spent our session detailing those things, it is available for you. Check out our YouTube channel is where you'll actually find it. But if you go to our RFC repo, you'll also find it. Next up is our blog site, devblogs.com, Microsoft/PowerShell. We post blogs here whenever we have releases. So it's a really great place to kind of stay up to date with the most exciting things coming from the PowerShell team. And then along with all this, we do try and tweet things out. So you can feel free to follow the PowerShell team. It's PowerShell_team on Twitter. We look forward to hearing from all of you and hopefully seeing you in person sometime.